Hello. Welcome to the premiere of One Thing is Certain, a dance film. My name is Jere Hunt, and I am the creator and choreographer of this film. I want to start this evening by just saying thank you. Thank you for being here tonight or this weekend if you're viewing us later. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for supporting the arts, particularly in this very difficult time that we are all going through. If you are joining us live, you will see below your screen there is a place where you can put in questions. We will have a question and answer at the end of the broadcast, and we will try and get to as many of those as we can without going all night long. I don't think any of us want that. So this project started when my friend Jonathan Detweiler sent me a message back in the summer and said, we should make a film. And I thought, oh, okay, I've never done that before. I don't know what that entails. Let me think about it. And he said, okay, well, I used to do some film editing work back when I was high school, and I have some friends that I did stuff with that live in the New York area and are professionals, and I think that they, might join in, and it could just be a nice collaborative project. And said, well, I don't really have anything else going on, so let's give it a try. So what is this about? And he said, whatever you want, you create it and we'll film it and edit it. And that was his first mistake. He gave me free rein. So this little project that I think he had in his mind became much larger. But I think that you will enjoy it as much as we have enjoyed making it. When I was thinking about what I wanted this film to be about, I really wanted to try and avoid it being about the pandemic. I knew that there was going to be a lot of content about the pandemic and what we're all going through, and I really kind of wanted to avoid that. And also there were just so many other things going on in our world, in our country, and we were having such important conversations that I wanted to take all of those things that we were thinking about and talking about and incorporate them into this film. So I started listening to music, and I thought, okay, I have a friend. Blake Allen just released an album a couple months ago called Sonatas. It might have been here. I don't know what is time, right? And it's really beautiful. Let me listen to it, and maybe he'll let me use something from it. And it truly is a gorgeous album, but nothing quite felt right. So I wrote Blake, and I said, hey, I'm making this film. Is there any chance that you would be willing to write something for me? And he immediately wrote back and said, I have been wanting to write for dance. This is perfect. I'm so excited. Thank you for thinking of me. Let's talk. And so we did. And of course, as you know, he did write the soundtrack that you will hear this evening, which is now also available on iTunes and Amazon and anywhere you can stream music. So when we're done here, go download Blake's gorgeous score. So I'm going to bring Blake in now to join me. Hi, Blake.
Hello. How are you?
This evening? I'm good. I'm good. How are you? Good.
So excited.
Good. It's good to see you.
Yeah.
So I know that I kind of wrote you and said, this is kind of what I have, I'm thinking about in terms of the content of the film and what it is going to be about. Can you just tell me a little bit of what you took from that and then what your process was moving forward?
Yeah, for sure. So you had specifically said that the second movement on the album Sonata is called Ballatur. You really liked because it was very stagnant with a constant crescendo. And so I really moved forward thinking about that specific movement. And then you had also talked about how you wanted the dance video, which hadn't been choreographed yet, to be in 3 different parts. You wanted the before, the during, and then the after. And so I started thinking about what 3 parts of music would be. And you had kind of given me open range to do it for any instruments. And so instantly I was like, okay, great. Let's run with the theme of 3. So there's piano, viola, and cello. My best friend in the whole world plays piano on the score, and so I really know what he's capable of. And then I play the viola, and then my friend Jessica Wang plays cello. So I was like, great, let me write something for all of us. And so then I started writing something very stagnant, and then all of a sudden, in the middle of the night, this melody would not get out of my head, and it was a waltz. And so I just was like, you know what? Let's stick with this theme of 3 and throw it in. So then we had a waltz, and then it kind of turned into, as you'll see in the score, we actually say the words 1, 2, 3, and then I combined the static motion with the waltz to create kind of this gradual, gigantic crescendo. And then I was like, how do I finish this? And so then the last section is taking the idea of the static section, and then it's consistent, and then the cello just plays a melody all free on its own. It's not associated with the piano, and that kind of was combining what Jere originally wanted, which is the before, during, and after. We don't know what the after is going to look like when we get out of the pandemic, but it's going to be comprised of our lives before and during. And so that's kind of where I went with that.
I am so incredibly impressed and just mind blown. Because also you did this in 5 days, which I could not believe. And it's really stunning.
It wasn't 5 days. So you from okay, let's do this, to when I sent you a draft was 5 days, but you had kind of sprinkled in, let's do this. And so my mind was already thinking about stuff, right? I always love the adage that Dolly Parton wrote, I will always love you in 15 minutes. She didn't write that in 15 minutes. Yes, she sat down, pen to paper, guitar, wrote it in 15 minutes, but it's her whole life experience. She probably was thinking about melodies and it never fit until that moment, right? So I kind of feel like that's what happened with this. It just, I've known you for several years, and so you just inspired me to do it.
Okay, I'll give you that. That's fair. But what is also really amazing is you just said something that I'm not even entirely sure that I told you. Maybe I did, but it is this idea that as we move forward out of this, even though we feel like there's a lot of things that have to change in order to create a better world for everyone. There's still a part of us from our past and from our present that gets carried forward into that. We don't completely just chop off everything that happened before and start anew. So it's really interesting that you just made that comment, because I'm not entirely sure that I told you that. So, but that's wonderful.
Yeah, I don't think you said it in those terms, but that's just kind of what I ran with, because you had talked about how you didn't want it to be linear at all, and so, but you had talked about how the 3 facets of what life was. That's what I took from what you said, because you also started talking at the end of August and beginning of September, which was at the height of the summer surge in the pandemic, right? So if we look back about in April, May, we thought it was only going to be a really short time. So now we're living in this, but we all still, the election hadn't happened. There was still so much tumultuousness. So it's really interesting listening to the score and watching this piece and to see how it's survived that time period. It's not just a timestamp of when we worked on this, when you filmed it. It has transcended topicality, which I think is great.
Yeah, that's wonderful. All right, I'm going to let you go, and we will see you at the end for the question and answer. Thank you for being here. It's so great to see you.
Yeah.
So after Blake sent me that score, I listened to it and I went, this can't just be me. I have to have dancers. I have to have a group of dancers. And thankfully Jonathan was like, all right, let's make it happen. He's been so great, just letting me do whatever crazy ideas come to my mind. So of course we were in the middle of the pandemic, so we couldn't really hold auditions. So we did everything virtually. I put out a casting call and had dancers send in headshots and reels and resumes and things like that. And I looked at them, and I chose on what they sent me, and then I sent them recordings of me teaching the movement phrases, and I said, show up to the shoot day prepared. I don't have a lot of money to pay you for hours and hours of work, and so I really want to keep this to a very limited time, so that I'm not using more time than I can pay you for. And I felt very strongly about that. So they showed up just ready to work, and they knew every movement and every count, and we were all just really impressed. I think I knew one of the dancers before the shoot, and the other 10 I had never met before in my life. So we're going to show you a little behind the scenes film now from our shoot days.
Hi, my name is Jere Hunt, and I'm very excited to be making my very first short dance film. I'm working with Erica Fraticelli and Jonathan Detweiler. They're my film crew, and I'm so excited to be putting this together.
Can I take video?
Yeah.
Oh, you girls look so good. Oh, wait, the zoom. Yes.
We started shooting last night in Central Park, and we're just ecstatic with the content that we got, and I know that today is going to be equally successful. I'm so excited to have so many dancers here to work on this project together. So this part of the film is what I'm calling our dream future. So this idea that we can create a world that's bigger, brighter, bolder, more inclusive, more expressive, and just create a community that is more positive. So that's kind of the feeling that we want to get through this. So, you know, just big and bold and expressive in all the movement. So we're going to start by doing it, and we'll review all together. But then we're going to start by doing it in little groups. And then once our final dancer is here, then we can actually start doing the group shots. But I don't want to waste too much time. So I'll probably just kind of be like, you, and you, go there and do it now. And we're literally just going to be doing this phrase of movement over and 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 probably over again.
Action.
Oh, sorry. And.
Amazing.
Thank you all so much.
Cheers.
We had a nice long
That day was, well, 2 days was so fun and so exhausting. I love that Erica threw in that moment where the necklace flew off and I grabbed it, and then of course she slowed it down, which is just hysterical. It was a really funny moment. But that brings me to I want to call out a few people that aren't quite as prominent in name recognition, but who obviously played a big part in this. And that is my photographers, Shauna Hundeby and Sophia Negron. They captured everything over the 2 days in film. So all the posters and the photos and everything that you see on our social media, that's all from those two incredible women. All the jewelry is by Sammy Jo Rocco. She wanted to offer that to us to use, and so she and I talked about how we could incorporate that into the film, and I think it just adds that little extra touch that is really wonderful, and so I thank her tremendously for that. And then the mask that I'm wearing was made by Matthew Neff. He is a former dancer, now costume extraordinaire, and I wrote him and said, I need a mask and I need it to look good for a film. And he said, don't worry, I got you. I'll meet you on the street tomorrow and hand you a mask. And he really came through for me on that. And so I thank him tremendously for that as well. All right, so moving on. Joining me now is Erica Fraticelli, our director and editor extraordinaire.
Thank you. And look at you, though.
Oh, this whole thing. How are you?
No, I'm good. I'm good. It's been a while since I've seen you. When did we shoot? October?
Yeah, October.
Yeah. I just want to get this out because I don't think, first off, people who know me know that I love dancers. I work with a ton of them. And Jonathan is a high school friend of mine who came to me, and we used to do projects in the past, little high school projects. And he came to me to do a project with a dancer. And so I was so excited. But the only thing was that we were in this pandemic. And this whole project, doing a short film with you guys, I was like, how are we going to do a short film during this pandemic, especially involving all these dancers? It was a lot to think about, but I just want to say, Jere, I think you are a genius. Blake, who did the composing for the music, I mean, amazing. I've always wanted to edit to a cinematic score, and I finally got that, and I feel like it's our score, which is so cool. It's so specific to the dance, to the choreo, and there's just so much passion behind it. And I'll get into some more stuff. I'll let Jere speak a little bit, but I just had an incredible time doing this with you guys. And so I just want to thank Jonathan and Jere and Blake, Shauna, who stepped in to be a photographer and help out at our Central Park shoot, which was so awesome. She came with John to assist as well. So that was really cool. It's so nice to, I guess, have so many people that I actually know. And I've never met you, Jere, but I'm so glad now that I know you. And Sammy Jo is actually with me right now. She helped with the jewelry. I'll let her step in later, but I'm so glad she was able to bring her aesthetic to the shoot as well. And I had to put in that clip because whatever happened when you were dancing, I don't know how that happened, but the way you caught it was crazy. I had to do that slow-mo. I don't know if people could actually catch what happened, but I was sitting at my computer editing for hours and I was like, what? And I was going back and forth. I'm like, but how? Trying to figure that out.
Magic. Well, that's one of the things, when things happen, on stage and live, you gotta make it work. You gotta figure it out, and you can't leave anything on the stage. So you catch it, you do something. So that came in handy. So before we actually shot, we had a little meeting, and obviously we had talked about what the film was about, and I gave you a little bit of, I made a really bad storyboard because I cannot draw, but I kind of made something and, kind of gave you an idea of what I was thinking and what kind of, shots and where things laid. But we didn't really have a very specific conversation about how this film was going to look. And somehow, and I told you this when I watched the film, I'm like, that is what I saw in my head, and she put it on film. How on earth?
Oh man. Okay, so going back to the part where I said you are a genius, I mean that because when I work with people, I don't necessarily expect too much from the actual performer. That kind of sounds harsh to say, but it's because I'm editing in my head. But I think for the first time ever, when I worked with you, I was just watching you and filming, and I actually didn't have an idea of how I was going to tie everything together. And I figured, oh, we'll talk about it later. But then when I put the clips together, and you guys are about to see how it's broken up into sections, you gave me a little bit of a summary of kind of what the story was about. But when I lined up the end of the choreo from one section to the next, everything lined up so perfectly. So like, that wasn't me, that was all you and your genius choreography and making those transitions so simple for me, because transitions is a very, very difficult process, and it just flowed so naturally. And I remember I was actually showing Sammy Joe some of the stuff I had edited, and I was like, watch this. And I would like bring it back, and I would like bring it forward, and I'm like, did you see that? Like, everything correlates together and it syncs so perfectly. So I thank you for that, because you made my job easier, and it was so fun to do. I love it. And for those getting ready to watch it, I know we're like streaming, so you're not going to get the absolute full quality of it. But I do want to mention, Jere, if I'm allowed to say this, but we are planning to distribute this out to streaming platforms. So when that becomes available, you guys will be able to watch it in full HD. We'll probably be sending it to like Amazon Prime Video and some other cool places. So that will be available later. I hope you guys get to watch it in that, like, I'm like losing my words because I'm too excited right now, but with that quality, you guys got to see it in HD, because it's a whole nother level. Things are brighter and everything's sharper, and we're just like a bunch of little pixels right now. So, but it was so fun to do.
So I think on that, well, actually, no, I'll make one comment. It's really interesting because I was stressing about that, and I was calling Jonathan, and I was texting Jonathan, and I'm like, Jonathan, I don't know how to make these transitions happen. These transitions have to make sense, but that's mostly because I've never worked in film before. I've only choreographed for a stage where you don't get to edit things together. Everything has to flow choreographically, and so he was like, he kept telling me, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. That's what editing is for. But I'm like, but I just can't leave it. I can't leave it. And so it was like, I had to make it make sense. And in some parts, you know, are very obvious that they had to be kind of edited in a certain way, but I had an idea of what that would look like. And you made that happen, which is amazing. So I think with that, we will premiere One Thing Is Certain, a dance film.
I hope you enjoy it.
We hope you enjoyed our short film. I want to go ahead and just say thank you again to all of those names that you saw there and many, many more who contributed to our GoFundMe to help pay for this film in its entirety. That GoFundMe is still open. If you search One Thing is Certain, a dance film on GoFundMe, you will find that. If you are able and interested in contributing, that money is covering all of the fees that we had to pay to use the parks and film in the parks. It's paying the artists, it's paying for the film festivals that we're submitting to, all of those things. So if you're interested, please look that up. You can also find all that information on our social media pages, Facebook, One Thing is Certain, the dance film, and Instagram, One Thing Film. Speaking of film festivals, we have submitted to a handful, about 15 or so at this point, that will occur throughout the year. But we have heard back from 2 that we are an official selection for their monthly festival. And then if we end up being award winners, we'll get screened at their annual festival. One of them, we have heard that we are a finalist for that. So that is very exciting. Please keep up with us on our social media, and you'll hear more about the festivals. You'll hear about when we do have it streaming, and all of those things. So without further ado, we will go into our question and answer with Blake and Erica and myself.
Hi.
It happened. It's out there.
Congratulations.
We did it. We did it. People saw it. All right.
Yeah.
Also, Blake, we've never met in person. I just wanted to let people know I don't know you until when 2 days ago, I think I met you virtually.
Yeah.
And you were such a big part of this whole video. I've been listening to you for hours and hours and hours, and I actually didn't know what your face looked like. So great work, amazing. I'm a fan. I'm a huge fan of you already.
What a
so
team.
I'm going to start with the really easy question off the bat, and that is, where's Jere's chain from, and where can we get one? Joe Rocco Jewelry, JOROCCO Jewelry on Instagram. You can find her. All the jewelry that was worn in the film, the short chains, the one that I wore in multiple ways throughout the film, and many other pieces of gorgeous jewelry are on her website. And then her website, Joe Rocco Jewelry. And then we'll move on to the harder questions. We've got a lot of questions of a similar note, and that is, moving forward out of the pandemic, do you feel more or less hopeful? Do you think that things will actually get better in terms of work environment, living quarters, spending habits, things like that? So just kind of in general, what are your feelings on how we are going to actually move forward out of this pandemic? Erica, I'll start with you.
You gave me the hardest one. All right. So, I mean, this has never happened to us. So I think we're all learning through this process. I think it's something, I think we all had to learn patience. We've never had to do that before. We've never had to stay inside before and really truly stop. But I've had this conversation before, and as sad as it is, and with everything terrible that's happened, something positive that I would probably bring to light is I think we all kind of needed that break, whether it was to think, whether it was to possibly think if you were on in the right job industry, if you wanted to shift in careers, if you wanted to go back to school. It truly stopped everything to give you a moment to think about who you are and where you plan on going. I don't know. I did a lot of thinking. I think the world is going to come back to normal sooner than later, but I think Earth needed a break. I think the air was able to be just a little bit cleaner for us. The water was just a little bit cleaner for us. I think we needed this. We have been on go and we're rushy everywhere. We had an opportunity to possibly spend some more time with our family at home, indoors, take a break from work, focus on your surroundings, and all the things that you've been neglecting, whether it was hobbies or projects. We kind of went back to our roots, and I think that was important. So that's what I have to say about that. But I say we're on the right path to get back to the way things are. But I think when we do return, it's going to be on a different level and hopefully a little bit more positive. And I'm kind of like at a loss for words, because it has been a lot that has happened over this time, but it's definitely been a lot of reflection. So grateful for it, though.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so when I started thinking about this, like I mentioned, I didn't really want it to be about the pandemic. And so I was reading a lot, and I found a quote from a novel called Kafka on Shore, and it reads, "Once the storm is over, you won't remember how you made it through, but one thing is certain, when you come out of the storm, you won't be the same person who walked in." And I think that is important, and really the impetus for this film. And I really think for me personally, the realization that going back to normal is not correct. We have learned so much in this period, again, not just with the pandemic, but with Black Lives Matter and with everything that has come to light and happened in our world in the past year. We can't go back to what was before. That's not. Our eyes are being opened to everything that was really kind of negative, and wrong is not the right word, but wrong, and what we've been forced to face, things that I don't think we would have been forced to face if it weren't for this. So I think that's that's really at the end of the day, that's what this is about for me. And whether that comes to fruition, and or how long that actually takes to come to fruition, I mean, obviously we don't know, but I think if we as individuals realize that and recognize that, we all have work to do to make this a more equitable world for everyone. So that's really where I stand, and what I believe in, and what this is about at the end of the day, for me. So Anna says, what a challenge to work together without being in person. Tell me more about your process. Yeah, so really it just, we all knew, I knew Blake, and Jonathan knew Erica, and Shauna, and I knew Sophia, and so we all kind of knew each other in different ways, and we all came together, and we had, like everyone did, we had virtual meetings on Zoom or Teams or whatever, and we had phone calls, and we sent things back and forth, and we talked about things, and really we just kind of created on our own, and then pulled it all together and discussed it, much like everyone is doing these days. So let's see. Did you have to create the choreography and practice in your apartment? How difficult is that in my seaside apartment? Yes, I did do that in my apartment. And I apologized profusely to all of the dancers and said, okay, I'm doing this move, and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to move over here, but, you just keep going. And so I had to, kind of, teach them through it. And then, of course, when we actually got outdoors and actually made it happen, and we had space, we were able to go through it and work out any like kinks and details. But yeah, it's difficult. I'm fortunate I have a decent sized space, but it's still small. And you have to make it work. Unfortunately, all of us as dancers are, taking class in our homes in New York still. Studios aren't open here. Maybe if you're in college or in a very small group, but in general, we're taking class in our homes still. So you're kicking things, you're contorting your bodies in even weirder ways than dance already does, to avoid knocking things over, or kicking a wall, or whatever like that. So it's definitely difficult, and I look forward to actually being able to do something in a space again. Let's see. Your directorial style is impressive. Oh, go ahead, Blake.
Oh, I was just going to say that, this whole thing has kind of been a beautiful piecemealing together. The score was also recorded one person at a time in my apartment.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah.
So the pianist laid it down first, and then Jess came and recorded her part the next day, and then I recorded the next day. So even, it's kind of this three-way that we're doing right now where we all know each other through someone else. It's also really fun that the score was recorded one at a time as well.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I forgot about that. So that's an important point as well. And every single bit of this has just been piecing all these different layers together. Go ahead, Erica.
I was just gonna say, it was actually funny getting to Roosevelt Island, and me not actually knowing that these were not people that you knew. So when I arrived, there was just like a bunch of dancers. They were all stretching, and it was like really quiet. And I was like, wow, like these dancers mean business. Like no one's talking to each other, but they're all friends, but they're taking this really serious. And I remember like coming in like, hey guys, because I have like a little bit more of a bubbly personality, but they were just like, it was just like so serious. I'm like, all right, cool. And then it was insane because when everyone begun the choreo, Jere literally was just straightforward. As soon as every dancer had arrived, he was like, all right, on 3, 1, 2, 3. And then everybody came together and did the choreo in sync. And again, I still didn't know at this point that nobody knew each other, that they hadn't been practicing together. And then it wasn't until like much later in the day, I was like, wait, you guys didn't know each other? But everybody knew the choreo, wasn't making any mistakes. That just blew my mind. And it's, I don't know, I feel like how is that even possible, right? Like it's amazing how we're able to pull a project together, never even meeting, Jere just sending a little video clip to all these dancers and them all knowing just like what to do. I was completely blown away by that. So cool.
Amazing.
Yeah, they all
I'm a fan.
they did show up just like they were prepared and they were ready to work, and it was really wonderful. But we did have a great time, and I feel like people really bonded, and we ended up, we talk about this all the time, but the world is so small, the dance world is so small, so we ended up playing, oh, that person, oh, I lived with that person, or we ended up making connections, and we all, are like 2 degrees of separation. So, that's just how it goes. But yeah, I think some of them might have known each other, but Olivia, I knew sort of through the dance company, and she actually came and helped me kind of like work through some stuff in Central Park like a few days before we actually shot. So that was also very helpful. And I appreciate her being willing to do that with me so that I could actually like see it on a body. So that. Okay, how were you able to film and edit such a unique story on such a shoestring budget? Because these people are amazing. Because this, in so many ways was a passion project for all of us. So, I started the GoFundMe because I want to, I want to pay these incredible artists what they're worth. But because I am, not independently wealthy, they were all very, very gracious to agree to a smaller fee, and then allow me to pay them as donations come in. And so I'm grateful to them for that, because if it weren't for that, I'm not sure what would have happened. But in some ways, as much as I hate to say it, unfortunately, a lot of us are starving for work. So anything that comes away, we're like, yes, I'll do it. Yes, please pick me. I want to. So, in some ways that kind of worked in our favor. How did you create such a masterpiece which feels so intimate in a socially distanced world? Well, I'll talk about on my part. This was actually very strange for me, because I created choreography that for the most part, everybody stayed in place. I couldn't do, normally when I choreograph, there's spatial patterns and people are moving and crossing and, all of those things. And so I couldn't do that. So I had to create choreography that allowed people to kind of stay in lines and move back and forth, so that they could keep their distance from one another, and things like that. And then with the three of us, me and Olivia and Minga, I created one little spatial pattern, but we ran in different directions so that we were able to keep our distance from one another. So it was difficult. And it definitely was different for me than I normally would have choreographed something. But then the other half of that is, of course, Erica and, Jonathan and Sammy Joe, were also camera people through the day. So we had multiple cameras rolling on every take. And so we were able to get those very intimate shots that kind of brought the space in. And actually one thing I want to ask Erica about is after the group section, when I'm back in my mask, the frame is very tight. And that was a decision that you made that I did not bring up. And Blake commented on it after he watched, and he said that moment where the camera stays really tight is just so incredible. What was your reasoning for that?
As much as I want to say, that was just this huge art decision that I made, I looked through my entire hard drive looking for a full body shot of that moment. And I only had 3 seconds of you standing with your arms like this. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm screwed. I have no full body shot. But it's funny, I threw that in and I was like, you know what? This is a little bit more intimate, a little bit more personal. And turns out, when I showed Sammy Joe everything, just because I feel like she has really good taste in this kind of stuff. And when I showed her, that one clip was her favorite clip within the entire film. And that's what I like to call, that was my happy accident. And I'm happy that you guys pointed that out. And I think that that's so hilarious, because if I could have changed one thing, I would have just had that one moment where Jere came back to the position like this, because I don't know, that pose resonated throughout everything. We see it in the posters, and to me, it's almost like the symbol of our film, right? When you just go into T position like that, and it's so strong. It's such a strong pose. So yeah, that's actually what happened. I could not find a full body shot in the entire hard drive, and I was scared that you guys were actually going to get really pissed off at me or something.
No, it captures the moment so perfectly. And in that space on the High Line, we were, you couldn't be that far from me. So, it kind of ended up that way. But that was, that's what that is about. We're in these confined spaces, and we're looking for a way to get out. And so, it definitely a very happy accident.
It's also something musically, I wrote this melody on purpose to not be able to expand out, like you're holding the volleyball in your underwater, right? I want to try to cello melody at that moment. So it's a happy accident that all three of us, once again, were on the same page, not being in the same room.
Yeah. That's kind of amazing. That's really cool. That's really cool.
All right. So we have one last question here about dancing outdoors and on an uneven surface and how difficult that was. And so I will just say that I've always loved being outdoors. When I was little, I used to run around barefoot all the time. I was a soccer player, and I would just run and kick the soccer ball in the yard. I just loved being outside in the grass with my feet in the grass. So in so many ways, this was kind of like going back to my roots, like way before I was even a dancer, or even thought about being a dancer. And I love that. And, we've performed on outdoor stages before, and I love that as well. I love the expansiveness of it. I mean, you talk about it in a theater, you've got to project to the back of the house. Well, outdoors, there is no back of the house. I mean, it's infinite space. But then you also have, it's a camera. So, and that is a different element as well. So it's interesting to kind of play those different elements. And I think the only difficulty, I was very aware to try and find relatively flat spots. I kind of walked around a bit and tried to find places where, it wasn't like a big hill or, too uneven. And then I think there was in Central Park, there was like some sort of metal thing in the ground that somebody cut their toe on. But that was really the only like difficulty that we faced. I think that all the dancers, really just did a tremendous job. So I'm gonna pose one last question for each of us to close it out. I want to hear about your neatest moment from this experience. So Blake, we'll start with you.
Well, I told you that I've always wanted to write for dance. It's been a goal of mine since I was a little kid, and so I think that it was really fun to finally have that come to fruition and to collaborate with you. I've known you for years, and I've never been able to do something with you, so I think that was exciting.
Erica?
Honestly, from start to finish, just because I think this was kind of, just like Blake said, it was kind of a goal that I wanted to hit, to be able to direct and edit this short film. Also being able to tie in like my love for dancers, being able to tie that in as like my first short film. I think it's so fitting for me because of like how passionate I am. So being able to produce this film, deliver it, have amazing feedback, and be able to send this out to festivals, and now like being selected. I mean, all of it all together, just everything that came with it was the neatest. I can't even pinpoint one.
Yeah, I will just, my biggest thing is that every single individual that was involved in this film in some form or fashion, from, Blake composing and Erica directing and Jonathan producing, these really major things, down to, Matt making me a mask, and a couple of volunteers, and Amani running our sound on the shoot days, which is, it's not a difficult job, but it just made things click. And every single person, all of the dancers, every single individual that came and participated in this film did so with the highest integrity, as if this was a multi-million-dollar film. I mean, everybody showed up prepared and wanting to work and eager to work, and I could not thank every single one of you involved in this film enough. It is truly better than I could have ever imagined, being the first film that I have made. So with that, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Thank you, Blake and Erica, for being here, and have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you.